Okay. Next story. Um, this one's about what's going on with the Miss USA. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So this article's from EV Magazine. What's happening at Miss USA? Title holder Noelle Vaught writes hidden message on Instagram post. I'm going to try to read this really quick and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Let's see here. Miss Teen USA Savasta resigned just days after Miss USA Noelle Vaught stepped down, and fans are convinced Vaught shared a hidden message on her Instagram. The 2023 Miss USA winner voluntarily resigned on Monday, becoming the first title holder in the pageant's 72-year history to quit. Just days after Vaught stepped down, Miss Teen USA followed suit. Is the Miss Universe world finally in shambles? So here, they're saying, why did she resign? Earlier that week, Vaught took to Instagram to share her reasons for quitting. In a lengthy statement, the title holder revealed she dropped out to prioritize her mental health. In life, I quote, "In life, I strongly value the importance of making decisions that feel best for you and your mental health. As individuals, we grow through experiencing different things in life that lead us to learning more about ourselves. My journey as Miss USA has been incredibly meaningful, representing Utah with pride and later the USA at Miss Universe. Sadly, I have made the very tough decision to resign from the title of Miss USA." Similarly, Sravastava shared an official statement on her social media, writing, "I will always look back on my time as Miss NJ Teen USA fondly, and the experience of representing my state as a first-generation Mexican Indian American." Oh, that's interesting.
We love that.
"At the national level, all fulfilling in itself. After careful consideration, I've decided to resign as I find my personal values no longer align with the direction of the organization." Social media sleuths believe Vaught intentionally left a hidden message in her Instagram. If you look at the capitalized letters at the beginning of each sentence and piece them together, one eerie phrase sticks out: "I am silence." The last three capital letters spell out HIP, but what it stands for is unclear. Okay.
Wow.
Now.
That's a lot.
Yeah, what do you think about that? That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's definitely some tea for sure. I was thinking about it earlier and I was like, I don't know. I feel like the whole letter in disguise, it might be a reach, but you never know, you know?
Have you seen the post though?
Yeah, I've read it.
Okay.
I mean, I've skimmed through it, but, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not a reach. Maybe it is, but like, I feel like that's a little bit extreme, but
Yeah.
I do think that obviously it had to be something big happen that they just felt a certain way, certainly felt strongly enough to be like, all right, peace out. Because I feel like, I mean, I've never been a pageant girl, but I've had friends who have been in pageants and stuff, and you just put a lot of work, sweat, and tears, and
Money.
I mean, money and all that stuff to get the title. And a lot of people compete for years and years and they never win. They never get the crown or whatever. And then it's like, to get to that place where you are crowned Miss Teen USA and Miss USA, it's like, I don't know what the heck's happening, but I'm not really knowledgeable about the whole, like, what's been happening lately over the years. I don't even think I've watched a whole like pageant show, if I'm being real honest. But yeah, I guess something must be really happening. But we all know, I feel like the only thing I know is like, obviously with like networks, they do air certain things, they don't air certain blah, blah, blah. So maybe it had to do with something like they just feel like they weren't able to practice like maybe like their free speech or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
I don't really keep up with pageants. Like, I don't find that stuff interesting. I know some people like it, and I mean, this is fascinating,
to
like
each
what's
their
going
own.
on. Yeah, to each their own. So I don't really know what's going on, but I'm assuming something big must be going on behind the scenes.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Because I think, like, to quit, like you said, you made such a good point. Like, you put so much time, energy, money, effort into this thing, and then just to quit out of nowhere, like, that's very unusual. And
Yeah.
then I think it's interesting that the adult and the teen both quit, because I feel like that must mean that they're
Right.
communicating. And then what does their values no longer align with me? What does that mean? Like, I think it's just so, this I'm excited to follow along because it's a little bit of
Right.
drama.
It
So
might be like the downfall of the pageantry world or something, like
yeah,
the like, the tip of the iceberg type of thing, where
yeah,
it's
this
like,
could be it. You're right.
like, oh, I'm trying to find an example of it, but I can't think about it right now. But like, whenever a big story comes out and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, like this and this and that, like this is what's really happening, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
this is their
I
Ellen.
mean,
When the person wrote that hit piece about Ellen, and she no longer.
yeah.
Yeah, this is their. Or the hit piece about Playboy Mansion.
Yes, because I
Yeah.
actually I was listening to I like that podcast, Call Her Daddy with Alex Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just really listening to. I was trying to tell my sister, but then her screaming girls were in the background. I'm like, okay, I'll call you later. But I was basically trying to tell her about the Hugh Hefner, the Playboy Mansion, like back in the early 2000s, that was like the thing. Like our reality shows, like think about it, were so insane. And
Insane.
back then, I think a lot of things have changed because back then we just didn't have social media. And if you think about it
Mm-hmm.
now, it's like we are basically our own reporters and
Mm-hmm.
news outlets and influence. Like I feel like the gap between like Hollywood and versus us normal people was so big, it was almost like unreachable. We never knew what was
Mm-hmm.
really going on behind closed doors. But now, because of over the years, people have been coming out with like, hey, this is really going on in this world, in that world, in Hollywood, and it's so many things are getting exposed. I feel like because that gap is a little bit closer, not in like, okay, we're rich celebrities too, but because like there's never been a time where like technology has just like really made us connected to the point where you can get on a podcast, have your own mic, and be like, this is my story, this is my truth, this is blah blah blah. It's really never been a time for it like now. So I was listening to about it, the Hugh Hefner, how the girls, like literally what they had to go through when they were in that house, and just how crazy it is because back then, like, you know, um, you just didn't, because you were so young and like groomed, you just didn't even know what you didn't even know. Like a lot of they were saying how like a lot of the times the girls were like, they just thought it was normal for to have a freaking, to be in a house full of other women that sharing the same boyfriend and being pinned against each other. Like they said that apparently that they would take Polaroids of the girls like in bikinis, and they would like rate the girls like one by one, seeing like what
Oh
parties they were
wow.
gonna be able to go, and what parties they were able to be at, and it would have like a grading system like ABCD, and like
Now
D means like all that stuff. And I'm like, and the girl Alex was like, how did no one say like, this is probably not like not good, like this is probably like not right? And the girls were like, I mean, that was just something that you did, and like that was just it. Like you didn't say anything about it, even if you thought like if even if you thought about it, like it would have been weird for you to stand up and everybody else is gonna be like, okay, like get in line. Like so
it
I don't
is.
know.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like how times have really changed. Because you're right, like that whole concept is so bananas.
Like,
That's
why did
so
not anyone say this is
crazy.
not right? Like, this is wrong. Like, this should
Yeah.
not be happening. And
Well,
it definitely shouldn't be a reality show about it.
I bet people did say something, but not like they weren't loud. Or not even they weren't
Yeah.
loud. Like they weren't we didn't have social media, so it's probably like I'm thinking like my parents were the type that like when there was an Adam and Eve store, you guys know Adam and Eve. An Adam and Eve store that was coming to show like my parents and like their church like protest. Like my parents were those type of people. So like I'm
Right.
sure my parents and like other people like super Christian conservatives were like against it. But because there was no social media, you kind of just talked amongst your friends. You said things and
Right.
like in North Carolina, you're not going to march down to Hollywood and pull these, knock on the mansion. No, come on, girls, you can do better. Like, you're not going to do that. So, like,
Right.
but
It's more hush
now,
hush. It's more hush
right,
hush. And now it's like you can have support from all over the world with one little video that you
right,
make.
right.
And like, so I think people feel more comfortable coming out. But yeah, I think like now it's just like with social media, you feel like you can reach way more people. You can kind of tell your story. Again, there's really nothing stopping you from starting a podcast or whatever. So, and plus when you're young, you really do think like a lot of the stuff that you're doing is like okay, and like what's the big deal until you're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, I was groomed, I was this, I was that. And like even even being in the cheerleader world, there's obviously like this like dark area of it. There's like this dark part of it of like, you are kind of you're dancing and stuff for a professional team, and then we don't get compensated as such, like as an athlete would. And so there's just a lot of different things that go on behind the scenes. So I'm sure it's the same way for pageants.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. There are people like commenting on your weight, like you literally sign a contract, you sign an
And
NDA.
cheerleading?
Yeah, cheerleading. Yeah. There's like
Oh
it's
wow.
you're an employee. Like you have your, you get paid for what you do. There's contracts, there's agreements, there's NDA. You can't take the players. That's like a big no-no.
Really? You couldn't date the
You can't
players?
be seen with the uniform, like the uniform, because you're an ambassador of the city, of the team that you're representing. So you have to be well-rounded, well-spoken. You have to have a full-time job. Like there is a lot of like guidelines, yeah.
Wait, you
So
had to have a full-time job and cheerlead?
yes, you have to have a full-time, part-time, because
Oh,
like the way that,
oh wow. I
yeah,
assumed that was your full-time job.
no, a lot of these girls, like they are actually really like they're very well-rounded. They have like full-blown careers, and then they do cheerleading part-time, but they don't tell you like part cheerleading is like a full-time, like it's full-time job. That's why I only did, I mean, granted, Dynamo
That's what I
ended really.
thought, yeah.
Yeah, the my cheer squad, we didn't have another season, but yeah, I mean, I was going to school at the time. I was going to college. I was 21, and I had a part-time job, and I was going to college, and I was doing, dance on the side. So
Oh wow.
crazy. So I don't know what these pageant girls, I mean, it had to be huge for them to
Yeah.
literally be like, all right, peace out.
Yeah.
So
And I guess we'll see in the next couple of weeks, because I don't think that they would just do that and then, oh well, that's that. So I'm
yeah,
sure something, because I mean the reality is like we do live in a different time, and like I and I mean beauty is such beauty, weight, makeup, all these things are very sensitive for women having these conversations. So I'm sure there are some things that like times have really changed.
yes. I
So
mean, think
I'm
about like, did you ever watch America's Next Top Model?
yes.
Like
Yeah,
basically the shows that are, and this could be like a whole thing. We need to hurry up, but like this could be a whole thing. Like the shows that were aired like the early 2000s, like Argent millennials. I think we like that's what I think a lot of people say, oh, Gen Z is like they're very soft, very soft generation, because like these shows that we grew up with, like they were pretty savage. Like America's Next Top Model, they would literally call a plus size girl someone that literally weighed a little bit more than 100 pounds. Like
yeah,
120, 130 was a plus size model. And
yeah,
if you
yeah.
say that now, like there's just so much repercussions, and I do think like a lot of it was for good. But it's like, I feel like now it's like you can't even say anything. Like Tyler
Yeah.
Banks would not, like Tyler
Oh,
Banks would have not, a lot of
canceled.
these shows, most shows that we watched growing up would have been canceled. Like
Yes.
even like on Disney Channel, I look back, I'm like, that's kind of racist. Like that's probably like that they're violating a lot of like rules. I
Social
just
rules, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my, like Tyra would have not made it. Like
No.
she would have been canceled so quick. Like those shows that we watch were literally like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is why we're traumatized.
No, you're so right. I'm like laughing thinking about some clips. Sometimes I'll see when people like share clips from America's Next Top
Yeah,
Model or even from her talk show. I loved her talk show. I was a huge fan. And like some of the things that she said, some of the like segments they had were
I
just
will
like,
say,
oh,
yeah, and I
okay.
think like people feared like celebrities, and people feared
That's true too.
they feared the people, like the producers, the directors, all of that. And I think those walls are like coming down. Like people are like, "What? You're not about to talk to me crazy. You're not about to make these
Yeah.
statements." Like, well, you know what I mean? I think it's like a
Yeah.
little bit of both. Like I don't know. I'm trying to explain it, but yeah, I feel like how Tyra yelled at some of those girls. Like that is just
I know.
not. No, but that's
On
like what
national
you're used
TV.
to. But that's what you're
Yeah.
used to, you think
Yeah.
it's right. And a lot, like I even in my high school, like I had a director who I loved, and personally I thought she was great. Like she really taught us how to like not have any BS. Like, there's a different, I feel like there's a happy medium. You don't want obviously to like crush someone's like confidence and call them names and, traumatize them. But it's also like, if you just tiptoe around everything and you don't give hard criticism back, like you're not going to develop those skills, like that are needed. And I feel like
A
this is why
hundred
it goes into
percent.
parenting, like the whole parenting thing now with the whole gentle parenting and stuff, which I can't even talk about that because I'm like, I'm not even a mom. Like, I just feel like that's such a big role,
Yeah.
to raise kids. But like, back to the whole like soft, generation thing, it's like I do think there's a balance, because it's like, yeah, obviously with whole Tyra yelling at people, like scrutinizing them, like obviously that's not good. But at the same time, it's like people have gone to the point where it's like to the extreme of like they don't fear authority, they don't fear anything, because they just feel like there's not going to be any repercussions. And it's made us kind of like this weak, like, okay, generation of like, okay, well, you can't tell me this, you can't tell me that, because my feelings are hurt, and now I want you to get fired, and
Yeah.
we've seen that too, of like people getting canceled, like in The Bachelor, the host, he
Oh
got
yeah,
canceled.
yeah, yeah,
And his whole
yeah,
livelihood, that was his whole career and livelihood. So it's just
yeah.
like, dang, like, I think we went from one extreme of like, we're gonna shut down. Like, I'm not saying like we're gonna get abused, back behind the scenes, and we're never gonna say anything. Like, obviously that's not right either. But now to the point where it's like, we have the control now, where we're like, all right, well, I didn't like how you said this, and we found something you did 2,000 million years ago, and now you're fired. And
Yeah.
stuck on that. That's
It's
crazy.
like, oh gosh, I cannot remember the book, but I think it was Animal Farm, where like finally the people who were oppressed became in charge, and then just because of human nature, now they're doing things to the people who
Yeah.
were hurting them. And there has to be a balance, because you're so right. Like, you were talking about a teacher. I remember I did ballet growing up, and I remember my ballet teacher, then one who was in charge of the whole ballet school, whenever she was very strict. I remember that's one thing. She's from England. She would tell us we were making her cross
Yeah.
all the time. But I do know for a fact, like, I was a better dancer. I did better when she was there, when she was strict on me. I don't think she's ever made me cry, except for one time I had the hiccups, and it was in the middle of rehearsal, and she pinched me because we didn't have time to go and we didn't have time to go get water, and she said, if you'll
Yeah.
be fine. That's one time I can think of. She was like, okay, that was probably not appropriate. But other than that, though, like, she was very strict, and I mean, that does help. Like, we need discipline. We need someone to hold us to a standard, and there's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. But you're so right, we've gotten to a point where we can't even do that, where we
Yeah.
can't even like you can't criticize someone, or you criticize someone and then they make it a bigger deal. But I think that's kind of goes to a problem like that we have in ourselves. Like, I
Yeah.
want to say that we can't be too sensitive, because like I hate that, because like I am a sensitive person, but
I
I
am
think you
too.
have to like yeah. So like I think you have to realize, like, even when some people like give me critiques, like 9 times out of 10, if you say I'm doing something wrong, I am going to take it to heart. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, whatever. No. I'm taking it to heart. But like, I've become like, now that I'm older and like I'm more self-aware,
Hmm.
I'm able to take what you said, take it to heart, and then be like, okay, you're telling me this because you want to make me better. Maybe I do need to work on what you said I need to work on. And I don't think
Right.
a lot of people are self-aware enough to do that. And like, sure, like, okay, let's say you were to tell me, like, you know what, Mallory, like, honestly, like, I just think you scratch your nose too much during the podcast, and it kind of distracts, like, it takes away from the podcast. Like, I'm going
Yeah.
to sit there and be like, wow, did she just say I have the worst podcast online? Like, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
take a moment and be like, no, that's not what she said. She said she wants to help me. This is my friend.
Yeah.
And people aren't able to regulate that anymore. I don't know why they aren't able to
Yeah.
regulate it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that like it's very hard to like, I don't know, to I think because it's just very, you have to have like a healthy balance, and maybe
Yeah.
we just haven't gone that. It's like, I don't think you need to scold people and like, freaking abuse them, but at the same
No.
time, it's like, we can't just take everything, every little thing, and be offended, and all of a sudden like,
Yeah.
make something out of nothing type of thing. So,
And you know what it makes me
but
think of? Oh, sorry, really
yeah.
quick. What it makes me think of is like, whenever someone, and this is going to be controversial, but like, this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Whenever someone breaks up with someone, no matter what you've done, your friends are going to say, you were right, they were wrong. You were
Yes.
such a good girl. Like, but sometimes I think, like, what if you weren't? Like, his friends are telling him he was in the right too. Like, sometimes, like, if we were both in the right, we should still be together, type of thing. And I think, like,
Right. Like taking accountability.
yeah,
And I feel like,
yeah,
it's just and that's the thing. I think we try to take a very one-sided approach to everything, versus like, everything has to be like its own unique situation. And I feel like that's where we're, you know, going wrong. I don't know if you saw the whole, anyways, I feel like we're getting sidetracked, but like there's this whole thing about, obviously like the mob, right? You're never going to please people. And it goes back to like, I think a lot of times now it's like to the point where like you like, if you're an influencer, you have to talk about certain topics. You have to talk about this, or the
yeah,
mob's going to come at you and like cancel
yeah.
you. Like, I also don't think that's healthy because
No,
again, it goes back to the thing we were talking about before. You don't know these people's lives. You don't know
no,
if they support what they support, what they do behind closed door. You don't know. So
right.
even if they do talk about it, it could mean nothing. Or just because they don't talk about it, they could be supporting. You just don't know. And that's a very slippery slope when we make like society like the ultimate judge, because it's also could not be to our most like benefit, I guess, because it's like, okay, well, the thing about the crowd is like you got to make them happy, and you can't always make someone happy. Not everyone's going to be happy with your decisions, with what you do, with what you say, so that's also like a slippery slope. So I don't know what's happening with the pageantry stuff,
Oh
but
yeah, that's what the
like
topic
like to
was.
your point, I know, right? We're over here like blah blah blah, like in 1913, but at least you know I don't know. I'm definitely intrigued to
Oh, me
see what's
too.
happening, and like I'm sure more things will come to light
Yeah,
sooner or later.
yeah.
But
Let
yeah, and
us know
of
what you
course,
guys think. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and I'm sure the girls, I can't even talk. The girls will probably be on some podcast, and that would be
Oh,
great.
yeah. And you
So,
guys, let us know. What do you think's going on? Do you think this is abnormal? Do you think she really was leaving a message? Do you think what do you think it means, which is the values on the line?